Welcome everyone, Christine here with a discussion about Elspeth von Draken in Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires, about her campaign as well as dynamics to deal with during the course of this campaign. You start over here in Nuln with a pretty decent army, including a great cannon as well as a unit of Hellstorm rocket batteries and Nuln Ironsides. You'll also start with an Empire Engineer. And you have fairly easy access to get a Witch Hunter and then whichever other hero you want. Things like an Imperial Captain, or in this case a Warrior Priest for the sake of casualty replenishment. Now, when you are playing Elspeth's campaign, the one thing you're going to have to deal with is the Imperial Gunnery Skull. I'll cover the Amethyst Armory later on in this video because there are some very important things over there. But everything that you do in the Imperial Gunnery Skull, be it the Imperial Armory or Amethyst Armory, is going to involve schematics. The principal way to earn schematics during the course of an Elspeth campaign is through battles. Battles with gunpowder units in your army and battles against enemy gunpowder factions or races. It doesn't matter what units they have, but as long as they are a gunpowder race, you will be earning schematics. This kind of creates a weird campaign dynamic in Elspeth's campaign, because say for instance I'm fighting these greenskins, they wiped out Midland, I gained 9 free schematics. That is about it with this army, and there's a good amount of gunpowder units in this army. But then if I go over here to Northern Shore, there's an entire army over here, but I just, auto-resolve this, 460, because I'm dealing with a gunpowder race, the Empire obviously being a gunpowder race. And furthermore, I get a post-battle option. You gain schematics in return for damage inflicted by gunnery and artillery units. Okay. And they're additional are earned from special post-battle options when fighting against other factions that utilize gunpowder weaponry. But it doesn't matter if they have gunpowder weapons in the army you're facing, as long as they're a gunpowder race. So this creates a dynamic where the best path available in an Elspeth campaign is not really to protect the Empire, but to actually conquer it. One of your best early game decisions, actually, would be to go for Stirland, because Stirland is a very easy faction to deal with. They will be giving you schematics. Or you could consider someone like Arnessa, of course, they could claw, but Arnessa is pretty easy one. Or Ogres. Because yes, Ogres do have cannons. Elspeth is kind of designed around the idea of fighting Vlad, but really you will not benefit as much from fighting Vlad as you would from fighting in other Imperial factions or the Dwarves. It's a bit of a silly situation. I personally think that if there was any kind of change made to this campaign, it would revolve around that. And this is the principal benefit in Elspeth's campaign. The things that are available here, the upgrades for generic units, all like pistolier or handgunner units, artillery units, all kinds of artillery units, including steam tanks and landships. And these things can be pretty expensive, I should add. Some of these upgrades can absolutely be pretty expensive to acquire, but especially things in the Amethyst Armory. So getting a hold of a bunch of schematics as quickly as possible is a fairly substantial benefit in your campaign. The other campaign mechanic to deal with are the Gardens of Morr. This is far more straightforward than you might believe. Basically, any Imperial faction that you have vision with, you can set up these Gardens of Morr. That does, crucially, include things like Marcus Wolfheart or Volkmar. So if you want to head over here in the desert, you can set up a Garden Morr or send a hero on a little journey, get vision there, set up a Garden Morr, and teleport there. Same with Cafe. Fun fact about Cafe, you have Vampire Coast, you have Cafaean factions themselves, and Skaven, all of which are gunpowder factions. So you can potentially gain a good amount of schematics for that. You also have Zeta the Black, who can also provide opportunities for that, dependent on how things have gone in this situation. So actually dealing with Vlad, even though you hard counter him, to be clear, is actually the least important thing in your campaign, and also kind of the easiest thing to actually deal with. Maximizing your schematics is really the campaign challenge in this campaign, because otherwise you can spend a significant amount of time. And the Gardens of Morr allow you, with Elspeth's army, to teleport to any one of them. That is their inherent benefit. Another benefit is that you can construct, kind of like a cult, a building over here. There are 3 buildings, one of which gives you recruitment for Knights of Morr Electrocount state troops, so some cavalry, mercenary replenishment time, minus 10%, and the vigor loss reduction when fighting against undead factions. So that's, again, not really important. Your gun line is so powerful that you can actually annihilate Vlad very quickly. You do get the Militia of Morr, which gives you a global recruitment duration minus 2 in the region that this is in, as well as a global recruitment capacity plus 1. As well as reducing upkeep in region and giving you access to a couple of basic units. Most important of these, I would dare say, are the Knights of the Black Rose, because these are a higher tier cavalry unit. Like these guys, you look at halberdiers, you look at handgunners, you look at mortars, you're looking at tier 2 units. But Knights of the Black Rose are a tier 3 unit. Or you can use them to get access to Amethyst Wizard recruitment in the province, as well as Winds of Magic benefits, power reserve capacity, and power reserve plus 20 per turn for armies in region. So the power reserve capacity is faction-wide and it stacks. But very importantly, this gives you all kinds of magic user capacity. So in a Garden of Morr, you can only recruit Amethyst Wizards, but because you're increasing capacity, it means that Elspeth can recruit a significant number of wizards in general. It won't be the same as Gelt, and it does take a while to get the Wizard Conclave going, right? Like over here, I waited until I dealt with some other things, to be sure. But it is very doable when playing this campaign to actually get access to a very substantial amount of mages very quickly, if you so decide. It's not necessarily the most crucial thing to do as quickly as possible, but at least it is available over there. So that is a particular strength that Elspeth does have in her campaign. On top of that, she does have the easiest way, or rather kind of the fastest way in some way, to get access to Fyodor Bruckner. Though you are required to get access to a tier 3 settlement, but you do get this quest over here faster than other Legendary Lords. Though realistically, you could potentially get that faster with Karl Franz, because it's just much easier to level up Altdor faster than Nuln, like just better growth. And Karl Franz does have that growth benefit. So, pros and cons. I think like if you play Karl Franz very well, you can actually get Fyodor Bruckner faster than Elspeth, because it just takes you that time to get that livery. Okay. Beyond that, thinking about faction effects and lord effects, you do get a research rate plus 10. You get minus 15% upkeep for gunner units, so all kinds of gunner units that do have an upkeep benefit. You gain double experience gain for artillery and gunnery units, so that's really nice and solid. So plenty of highly experienced gunpowder units that you will have. And then if we look at her lord effects and her special skill line, she is immune to vampiric attrition. She has a minus 20% cooldown for lore of dark magic, and she has the Dark Walker ability, which gives her 40% physical resistance and strider. And also, once you gain her level 16, she can fly on top of freaking dragon. That is pretty substantial in her own way. The Carmine Dragon in particular is a nightmare. Because what the Carmine Dragon does have as an ability is the breath attack of the Carmine Dragon is very dangerous and very, very nasty to deal with. So the blast over there from the Carmine Dragon is exceptionally good at dealing with single entities. Or it makes it easier to just make them more vulnerable, which in turn, if we look at the unit and spell browser, it is a really powerful ability that she can get access to over there. Regardless, That is one of the benefits of Elspeth from a lore defect situation. She's also really good against vampires in other ways. She reduces the battle healing cap, which is one of the issues with Vlad, or undead in general. She has a once a magic cost for Lore of Death, once a magic power reserve capacity for her own army, a recruitment benefit, and hero capacity for engineers. So she's not just getting a lot of mages, she's getting more engineers than anyone else as well. She gets a Darkwalker ability on top of that. And then she also has regeneration and wound recovery time. Yeah, Elspeth is one of the interesting magic users in the game in that she's clearly a dedicated magic user. To be sure, she's not great in a melee affair, but what she's really good at, because she's flying a freaking dragon, she's actually good at surviving a lot of things. She won't kill something in melee, right? But she's just got enough durability between the Carmine Dragon, the Darkwalker ability, the regeneration to actually just throw her in the middle of an enemy army, and she probably will survive a lot better than you might think she should. So that is one of the principal benefits that she does have. But it doesn't really just end over there either. You also get some unique items for her. So you get, for an engineer, the one she starts with, she gets explosive missile damage 10%, missile explosive radius for all units in army, and experimental explosives as well. Yeah, that is absolutely a very dangerous combination that you have there between her magical capability and the long-range gunpowder ability that she has working for her. But again, the weirdness, if you will, of this campaign is you might think that you're really aimed at Vlad, but dealing with Vlad is actually not really the biggest priority in your campaign in any real way, as far as I see it. You do start with a minor vampire faction, so you do have vampires to deal with early on. They do control Fyldorf, but again, you just get better benefits if you focus on gunpowder races. And because of that teleportation, you do actually have a lot of flexibility on going around the map. Like, let's say you start an Elspeth campaign, you might just rush for Carcassor over here, take this out, make a deal with Belagar, then go deal with Aranessa or Ikikla, and then teleport back into the Empire to deal with other things. Or you can just do what I did in this campaign, which, yeah, I took Fyldorf, sold that to Everland, let them deal with the Greenskins, and then just marched on freaking Stirland, and then sold that to Everland as well, while confederating to Alabama in the process. So it is a very... there's a good amount of flexibility, but it's kind of a bit ruined by the fact that, yeah, you just benefit a lot from going for gunpowder races. For what it is worth, there are certainly plenty of them that you do have available right next to you. So it's not a bad situation, far from it. Elspeth is ridiculously powerful, ridiculously good. And unlike Carl, who has to wait turns to just confederate minor Imperial factions, you kind of don't care about it. The one downside I would express in this campaign is just the fact that Nuln just... it takes longer to get Nuln to a higher level than it does to do Altdorf. You don't have the growth benefit that either Karl Franz or even Balthazar Gelt do have. Because Gelt may not have an inherent growth benefit, to be sure. But where Gelt does shine in various ways is that he does have that event when he returns to the Empire where he can get a ridiculous amount of population surplus points. Just kind of worth pointing it out about the pros and cons. You do have the best army of any of the Imperial factions, but you also have kind of the slowest campaign of all the three major Imperial factions, the ones that work, so Karl Franz, Gelt, or Elspeth. With respect to the Imperial Gunnery School, it is fairly straightforward. You get a bunch of schematics, and you do then complete a bunch of objectives in order to unlock higher tiers. So tier 1, pretty easy to do. Tier 2 requires a level 3 artillery shop, so requires a level 3 settlement. Tier 3, pretty simple. Just once you unlock the Amethyst Armory, you use it. Tier 4, that is time consuming, requires a level 5 building from Nuln. Not especially great, but the benefits are certainly worth it. The main bottleneck here, however, as stated, are going to be schematics. And not necessarily the things over here. These things are really cheap, and it's like you just get an upgrade and forget about it. But even then, you're still looking at spending thousands of schematics in order to unlock the things over here. But the real expenses come in the Amethyst Armory. Now, most of these upgrades that you see here are just like making units stronger, as well as with some nice little benefits like exploding ammunition, disoriented, snipe, stock, dazed effect, grape shot, and so on and so forth. But in the Amethyst Armory, it's a bit more special. So you have your nuke abilities over here on the right side with Amethyst Artillery. Not quite as powerful as Claw's nuke, but you will be able to realistically get more of these, a lot more of these, than you would get nuclear weapons for Claw. Not the same individual impact, but still pretty powerful. And this is where you really understand why spending a good portion of your campaign focusing on dealing with opponents that are going to give you schematics as opposed to, fighting Vlad, fighting Festus, is actually far more worthwhile, because the power you're gaining here is ridiculous. Now, you do get 4 different units. Now, these units do have a cap per army, so you can only maintain a certain number of them. By default is 5 units over there per army, though Elspeth can get an extra benefit for her own army to increase that Amethyst unit capacity per her own army. That is a nice benefit. But these guys are actually quite ridiculous in combination with some other things. Now, Amethyst are inside just better units. They have magical attacks, they're using magic, they cause fear, all that. You do get all kinds of benefits here, but with respect to Ironsides, Outriders, and even the land ships, there are some nice benefits. There's a good amount of power, but it is the Amethyst Hellstorm rocket batteries they unlock after finishing the 3rd tier in here that are quite frankly ridiculous. So already you're getting a significant Hellstorm rocket battery benefit, but the Amethyst Hellstorm rocket batteries are a game-changing unit, in particular combined with other benefits that Elspeth gets. So she's increasing the range, the ammo, the reload time reduction, on top of the benefits in the Imperial Army. Keep that aspect in mind. And then she's doubling the damage of rocket vortexes. So the way these things work, just to really explain that very quickly. If we look at these things compared to a regular Hellstorm rocket battery, a regular Hellstorm rocket battery may do more damage. But the way the damage works here is they're firing kind of like mini spells at the enemy. So just very small spells with death magic in them, magical attacks, sure. But the projectiles themselves are far more accurate and deadly. But that's not really what makes these things crazy. I mean, powerful Hellstorm rocket batteries in of themselves are going to be a pretty substantial benefit. But it is this upgrade they do have over here that is the real winner right here. Last rites. Take a read on this. Power recharge up to 80% and power reserve per second from 0 to 0.10 per unit. Effect intensity increases with each kill made by the unit. What this effectively does is it grants Elspeth not quite infinite winds of magic, because you do have to worry about ammunition and all that, but it gives Elspeth an enormous pool of winds of magic benefits. Recharge speed, reserves per second being generated. This means that in conjunction with Elspeth's inherent magical benefits in her campaign, she can make an extremely powerful mage stack. Gelt might have better individual spells, but even Gelt doesn't come anywhere close to infinite. He has a limit. And Elspeth can, in effect, get infinite winds of magic just through the Hellstorms. But it's not just the Hellstorms that you're benefited from. Remember, you also have the Winds of Magic Power reserve capacity plus 10 for every single Garden of Morr. And you have an enormous amount of Battle Wizard capacity through the Gardens of Morr. Does Elspeth have one of the most powerful Mage Doom stacks in the game? Yes. Does she have one of the most powerful ranged armies in the game? Absolutely. Does she have flat out one of the most powerful armies in the game in general? Well, she doesn't have the flying flexibility that Malachi brings to the table, but you gotta understand, the mages of the Empire, the kind of benefits that they provide in an army, even if the ones I have right here are very low ranked, but the kind of benefits you're talking about with mages, you're looking at power reserve capacity, you're looking at campaign movement range, ambush defense chance for Celestial Wizard, you're looking at slippery ambush success chance stock, these kind of benefits that you do have for these mages, and all kinds of schools of magics available for Battle Wizards, and a ridiculous level of magical capability combined with Elspeth's ability to really keep the momentum going in terms of restocking, because she can get a good amount of engineers too. Don't forget that aspect. Like, you combine all of these things and Elspeth's gems, you end up in an insanely crazy situation with Elspeth being able to make a really powerful Doom stack for her own sake. Yes, you do want to get the upgrade that allows you to pick up that benefit, that extra Amethyst unit capacity, but Elspeth's army can be crazy. But there's more. Hilariously so. The final aspect to mention with Elspeth, and one shouldn't judge what I show in this campaign as some kind of like be-all and end-all in terms of campaign strategy. I'm demonstrating things. I'm going over mechanics. The way to play an Elspeth campaign, that's kind of the choice, right? Do you rush Vlad or do you go for Aranessa and Ikiclaw? That is a decision to make. I would probably recommend getting gunpowder. Personally, that's just my view. And leaving the Empire to rot. But one of the benefits in this campaign compared to Karl Franz is the way you gain state troopers. So like with Balthazar Gelt, you have research that you spend for money. Gelt does have infinite money because he can print it through the Colleges of Magic. You don't have quite the same benefit. But things like Spears in the Empire, Machines in the Empire, all these state troopers you can unlock in a single turn if you have the money for them. You may not have that money early on or for a decent portion of the campaign, but it is a much faster and more convenient process than Karl Francis had. Also worth pointing out that you do actually end up with more campaign flexibility with Elspeth, far more so campaign flexibility with Elspeth if you choose to go for it than Karl Franz or Gelt. Like, the only thing that you really care about keeping in the Empire is Nuln itself, and it's in a relatively safe location. Few people, if anyone, is ever really gonna attack Nuln. I mean, Vlad might do it, but you can always send Elspeth on a journey and then just teleport once you see Vlad is conquering Averheim. And that's assuming that Karl Franz won't stop him, or, Ungrim and the dwarves won't come down from the mountains. Those possibilities do genuinely exist. Actually, in this case, we actually end up in a kind of situation where Scrag actually attacked Vlad, so I ended up in a war with him because I wanted some territory back. That ended up happening. So, you do have flexibility, you do have power, magical power, dueling capability, and I would like to mention that, although I won't cover him in this video, Fyodor Bruckner is a ridiculously good duelist on top of that. And the benefit for Elspeth is, while you can get Gotrek and Felix in her army, you might want to get Fyodor Bruckner for the simple reason that you can give him this route. He's a pretty crazy duelist with regeneration. Yeah, Elspeth is bananas. What is my personal perspective on it? Well, I actually don't really like playing her in a lot of ways because I think, on one hand, it's not an especially engaging campaign mechanic to have to be hunting down schematics. And on the other hand, I think her campaign is just like you just dominate anyone that you put your mind to dominate. I much prefer playing Karl Franz. And that's not because I'm such a big fanboy of Karl Franz. I hated Karl Franz's campaign for the vast majority of its existence. It's mostly down to the fact that I think it does present more interesting options that are meaningful. Whereas Elspeth is, you're just going to obliterate everything that stands in your path. That would be my point of view on it. But for what it is worth, it certainly has some unique mechanics. It certainly has an enormous level of power that, like, I say again, she has one of the best magical armies in the game. Not in the sense of pure power, but just like ease of access to mages, lots of winds of magic, restoring winds of magic and battle, and flat out one of the best ranged armies in the game as a whole. Christine signing out. Stay tuned for more.